Family dinners didn't start until the man of the house had taken his seat. Talking about money problems with anyone but your spouse was considered taboo, and women were expected to give up their careers once they got married. Here are 25 marriage rules from the 1970s that'll make your jaw drop. The wife served her husband first. You might remember this, the unspoken tradition of dinner, starting only after the man of the house sat down. Plates were arranged carefully. The roast, the mashed potatoes, maybe a green bean casserole still steaming. And always, his portion first. It wasn't just a sign of respect, it was considered part of being a good wife. That's what magazines said. That's what mothers taught their daughters. It made sense in a world where men were expected to work long hours, and women were expected to keep the home running like a quiet, polished machine. But think about how that would play today. Modern couples share kitchens, swap recipes, order takeout, and eat in front of Netflix. The idea that one person's worth is measured by who gets served first feels almost alien now. Still, maybe there's a small echo of that old ritual when you instinctively hand your partner the first slice of pizza or pour them a drink before your own. Little habits from a time when love was often shown through service. Do you still do that sometimes without even realizing it? While serving your husband first might sound like a stiff rule, it pales in comparison to the way divorce was viewed back then. Divorce was a scandal, not a solution. If you grew up in that era, you remember the hush that fell over the room when someone whispered, "Did you hear they're getting divorced?" It wasn't said lightly. Divorce in the 1970s was a kind of social earthquake, a mark that lingered on you for years. Women especially carried that stigma, as if leaving a marriage meant you'd failed at being a wife, no matter how unhappy you were. Before no-fault divorce became widespread, people had to prove wrongdoing. Adultery, abuse, abandonment. Couples would quietly separate, but keep up appearances, pretending everything was fine. The neighborhood barbecues, the church picnics, all with a careful smile. You stayed for the kids, for the mortgage, for reputation. Today, people are far more open about walking away when something isn't working. There's pain, yes, but also freedom. Freedom to start over without shame. Back then, that kind of freedom was something most people couldn't even imagine. Do you ever think about how many lives would have turned out differently if divorce hadn't been such a dirty word? While women had to carry all the shame in cases of divorce, men had to carry a different kind of burden. The husband handled all the money. Picture the household finances in the 1970s, a single checkbook in the kitchen drawer, the man's name printed across the top. He'd handle the bills, the mortgage, the savings, while the wife got an allowance for groceries or small household needs. It wasn't seen as control, it was responsibility. Men were the providers, women the caretakers. That was the script. But beneath that, many women learned to stretch every dollar with quiet genius. Coupons clipped from the newspaper, exact change counted at the grocery store. Some even hid small stashes of cash in coffee cans or coat pockets, just in case. That was their safety net in a world that didn't offer them many. Now couples share apps, split bills, build investments together. There's a sense of partnership that simply didn't exist in most homes then. And yet, you can still feel the shadow of those old dynamics sometimes. One person quietly taking the reins, the other trusting or resenting it. In your own home, who balances the books? While it may sound strange now that men were expected to be solely responsible for the bills, it makes perfect sense when you consider the approach women were expected to have towards careers. Marriage came before career. In the 1970s, if a woman said she wanted to work after marriage, people would raise their eyebrows. Why would you need to? Isn't your husband providing? It wasn't just pressure, it was expectation. Even women who earned college degrees often stepped away from their jobs once they got married, especially when kids came along. Some companies even had policies that discouraged hiring married women, assuming they'd leave soon anyway. For those who wanted more, it was a balancing act full of guilt. You might remember the commercials, cheerful wives using new kitchen gadgets, framed as their greatest achievement. The idea that fulfillment could come from outside the home was only just beginning to take root. Today, that script has flipped completely. Women lead companies, pursue passions, and often out-earn their partners. The modern conversation isn't should a wife work, but how do both partners balance it all? Still, it's worth remembering how recent that shift really is. Maybe you even lived through it, feeling that pull between ambition and expectation. Do you remember when you first realized those rules didn't have to define you? These days, the idea of women putting their careers on hold after marriage feels outdated, but a lot of people still follow this next rule, just for very different reasons. Never go to bed angry. This one sounds sweet on the surface, doesn't it? A bit of homespun wisdom passed down from every grandmother and marriage manual. But in the 1970s, it carried a deeper message. Keep the peace at all costs. Don't raise your voice, don't argue too long, and certainly don't sleep in separate rooms. The image of a perfect couple was one of constant harmony, even if that meant sweeping real issues under the rug. You can picture it, the quiet tension at the dinner table, the forced smiles at church on Sunday. Many couples lived by this rule so rigidly that resentment piled up behind closed doors. But to the outside world, they were solid, a good marriage. Today, we know that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is take a break, cool down, and talk in the morning with a clearer head. Honesty now carries more weight than politeness. But back then, silence was often mistaken for stability. Do you think couples were happier pretending not to be angry, or did it slowly eat away at them over time? Some people still argue that never going to bed angry may have had its benefits, but nearly everyone agreed that this next rule needed to be abolished. The man drove everywhere. It might sound small, but it symbolized everything about the era's balance of power. He held the car keys, the steering wheel, the direction. Even on family road trips, the husband drove while the wife managed snacks, maps, and kids in the back seat. It wasn't questioned. It was tradition. Driving meant control, and control meant masculinity. The world outside reinforced it. Car ads showed men in crisp suits gripping the wheel of a Cadillac, while women smiled from the passenger seat, wind in their hair. Few people even thought to ask why it was always that way. Now, of course, the idea feels outdated. Couples take turns, argue over playlists, share the gas receipts. But somewhere in the background of those memories, dusty highways, gas stations with glass Coke bottles, you can still feel that old rule lingering. When was the last time you automatically handed the keys over out of habit, not thought? Each of these unspoken rules was part of a larger story, a world where love was real, but so were the boundaries. The 1970s were full of contradictions, progress on the surface, tradition holding strong underneath. And for the couples who lived it, those rules weren't restrictions. They were the framework for what marriage was supposed to be. Men doing all the driving is mostly a thing of the past, but people are still divided on whether this next rule should be abolished or enforced. Public affection was frowned upon. Back then, love wasn't meant to be loud. You might hold hands in church or give a quick kiss before a dinner party, but anything beyond that, it was seen as improper, something you kept private. Couples were expected to show affection through small gestures, a warm dinner, a clean shirt, a quiet thank you. Love lived in actions, not displays. Think about that for a moment. Imagine a Friday night in 1974, dimming streetlights, the soft hum of a radio playing The Carpenters. A couple walks home side by side, arms not quite touching. They don't need to say, "I love you." It's implied in the rhythm of their steps, the routine of their lives. Compare that to today, where affection is everywhere. Hand-holding in public, selfies on social media, anniversary posts with hearts and hashtags. Love has become something we perform, not just feel. But maybe in that quiet restraint of the past, there was a kind of depth too, a privacy that made love sacred instead of shared. Which do you prefer? Love that's seen or love that's quietly known? Back in the day, both the man and the woman were expected to show love love with actions, not words. But this next rule applied only to women. The wife was the social secretary. In most 1970s homes, the wife was the one who remembered birthdays, sent Christmas cards, planned dinner parties, and wrote thank you notes in careful cursive. Her Rolodex was a social map of their lives. Neighbors, co-workers, relatives, all kept connected through her effort. The husband, he showed up, smiled, and took the credit for having such a gracious home. That role came naturally to many women because it was expected. Hospitality wasn't just politeness, it was a reflection of your worth as a wife. You kept the house warm and welcoming, not just for guests, but as a mirror of how much you cared for your family. Today, social calendars live on shared apps. Couples text invites, RSVP online, and split the emotional labor more evenly, or at least try to. But there's something intimate about the way it used to be, isn't there? The handwritten notes, the effort behind every meal, the unspoken rule that connection was something you maintained by hand. Do you miss that personal touch? When it came to social affairs, the woman was in charge, but in everything else, it was the other way around. The husband's word was final. This one might sting a little, but it's true. In most households, when a decision needed to be made, whether about finances, discipline, or even what kind of car to buy, the husband had the last say. Because I said so wasn't just for kids, it was the end of every household debate. That authority was baked into the culture. From TV shows to advice columns, men were portrayed as rational and strong, women as emotional and supportive. A wife who disagreed too openly risked being labeled difficult. Some learned to influence decisions quietly behind the scenes through persuasion, timing, or gentle humor. Now, relationships thrive on equality and communication. Decisions are made together, or at least that's the goal. But if you grew up watching those old dynamics, you can probably still hear that tone, can't you? The one that ended arguments even when it shouldn't have. How often do you catch yourself echoing that old power balance, even just a little? Men were expected to make all the decisions, but when it came to housework, things took a surprising turn. Boys don't do homework. It sounds absurd now, but in the 1970s, it was gospel. Men mowed the lawn, fixed the car, and took out the trash. Women did everything else: laundry, dishes, cleaning, cooking. Even little boys and girls were trained differently. Sons were told to help your father, daughters to help your mother. It wasn't mean-spirited. It was simply the world everyone knew. There was pride in that division. A man's hands were supposed to be rough from work. A woman's were supposed to smell faintly of soap and flour. Saturday mornings were filled with chores, vacuuming to the sound of the Bee Gees, the hum of a washing machine in the background, the smell of pine sol filling the house. Now chores are, hopefully, shared. Men cook, women mow lawns, kids help with everything. But that old idea that certain tasks belong to one gender still lingers in subtle ways. Who folds the laundry in your home without thinking twice about it? When it came to chores, there was a clear divide between men and women. But if the marriage went sour after they had kids, both sides were left with only one option. Couples stayed together for the children. In the 1970s, it didn't matter how unhappy a marriage was. If there were kids involved, you stayed. The idea was simple. Children needed both parents under one roof, no matter what it cost emotionally. So couples stayed through silence, through resentment, through years of sleeping in separate rooms. The logic was practical, even noble in its way. Families were supposed to be stable, and stability mattered more than individual happiness. But many kids, now adults, remember the tension, the arguments muffled behind closed doors, the forced smiles at dinner, the unspoken understanding that together didn't always mean in love. Today, we know that children thrive on honesty, not illusion. A peaceful co-parenting relationship can be healthier than a miserable marriage. But back then, appearances mattered more than truth. Do you think that old rule created stronger families or broken ones that looked whole from the outside? Both the man and the woman had to bear the emotional weight of staying in a marriage they didn't want, but the man was the only one who wasn't allowed to show his pain. The man never cries. This rule wasn't just about marriage, it was was about masculinity itself. In the 1970s, a man was expected to be stoic, calm, unshakable. He could show frustration, even anger, but never tears. His wife could cry, his kids could cry, but him, never. That was weakness, and weakness had no place in the image of a real man. So feelings got buried under work, alcohol, or silence. A man might come home from a brutal day, loosen his tie, and sit staring at the TV without a word. His wife would sense it, she always did, but she wouldn't ask. It was his way of coping, and hers was to hold the space for it. Today, men are allowed, encouraged even, to open up, to be vulnerable, to say, I'm scared or I'm hurting. But for an entire generation raised on that old rule, the habit of holding it in still runs deep. Do you remember the first time you saw your father or husband finally cry? While men were expected to hold back tears no matter what, women had to bite their tongues in public. A good wife never complained publicly. In the 1970s, women were told to protect their husband's reputation the way they protected their children. If he drank too much, if he was distant, if he made a bad decision, those were private matters. The worst thing a wife could do was embarrass her husband. So you didn't air grievances, not even with close friends. You smiled through it, hosted dinners, sent your husband off to work with a packed lunch and a kiss, no matter what happened the night before. That kind of silence was seen as strength, not suppression. Now, people talk about everything on podcasts, in therapy, online. Transparency is a virtue, but that old code of privacy gave marriages a different kind of armor, for better or worse. Maybe it kept the gossip away, but it also trapped pain inside. Have you ever caught yourself smiling through something you shouldn't have had to? Women were expected to suffer in silence, and this next rule just made everything worse. Marriage counseling was taboo. If your marriage hit trouble in the 1970s, you didn't go to therapy, you worked it out yourselves, or you pretended it was fine. The idea of seeing a counselor meant failure, weakness, or worse, airing your dirty laundry to a stranger. Churches sometimes offered guidance, but professional help, that was a last resort, whispered about. Couples in trouble were often told to pray harder, compromise more, or remember your vows. Love was supposed to be self-sustaining. If it wasn't, people assumed you'd done something wrong. Now, therapy is not just accepted, it's celebrated. Couples talk about communication, boundaries, trauma, emotional growth. Back then, those words didn't even belong in the marriage vocabulary. What would have happened if more couples back then had permission to ask for help? The 1970s were full of those contradictions. Rules meant to keep marriages together, but often at the cost of connection. Yet, within all those boundaries, love still found a way to survive. Quietly, imperfectly, enduringly. While the rule against marriage counseling is long outdated, many people still hold women to the standards set by this next rule. A good wife keeps herself up. In the 1970s, this wasn't just friendly advice, it was a moral code. Magazines like Good Housekeeping and Ladies' Home Journal drilled it into every article. Even after marriage, a woman should always look her best for her husband. That meant full makeup, curled hair, perfume, stockings, and dresses. Even while vacuuming, the message was clear. Beauty wasn't self-expression, it was a duty. You can almost picture it. Saturday mornings, sunlight streaming through lace curtains, and a woman applying lipstick before her husband even woke up. Her mother had taught her, never let him see you look tired. Love in that world was something you maintained through appearances. Today, we talk about self-care, authenticity, comfort. Sweatpants at breakfast don't mean neglect, they mean trust. But back then, an unkempt wife was a sign that something was wrong in the marriage. Do you ever wonder if those women felt seen for who they were, or only for how well they played the part? Women were expected to always look their best, while men weren't even expected to do the bare minimum when it came to raising kids. Men don't do diapers. This rule was ironclad. In the 1970s, the image of a man changing a diaper was almost comical. Parenting was divided along clear lines. Mothers raised the kids, fathers provided. Even the baby products of the time reflected it. Ads showed glowing mothers holding infants, while fathers appeared later, teaching their sons to throw a ball. But if you were a mother back then, you know how heavy that load could be. The endless bottles, the midnight feedings, the teething cries, all hers to handle. Fathers were babysitting when they helped, not parenting. Now it's normal, expected even, for dads to be hands-on. Baby carriers, paternity leave, shared duties. But that change didn't come overnight. It started quietly when a few brave fathers ignored the laughter and just picked up their kids. Were you there to see that shift? In addition to handling all the diaper duty, women were also expected to take care of everything that happened in the kitchen. The wife managed the kitchen. Every home had its rhythm, and the kitchen was her domain. From the grocery list on the fridge to the recipe card stained with years of gravy splatter, it was a sacred space. She knew which Tupperware lid fit which bowl, how much salt the stew really needed, and which day the butcher sold the best cuts. The kitchen wasn't just about food, it was about pride. If a guest said, "What a lovely meal," that compliment was worth its weight in gold. A husband might mow the lawn or pay the bills, but the kitchen was where her love lived. These days, the kitchen is often shared or outsourced entirely. Couples cook together, order in, or rely on meal kits. But for women of that era, cooking wasn't optional. It was proof of care, a kind of daily devotion. Can you still smell your mother's kitchen from those years? The butter, the onions, the faint hum of the oven timer? While the kitchen was the wife's domain, there were certain boundaries she couldn't cross. A wife doesn't question her husband's friends. In the 1970s, a man's social circle was his territory. His poker nights, his bowling league, his after-work beers. They were off limits for commentary. A wife might not like some of the men he kept company with, but she was expected to stay quiet. Those friendships were part of his identity, his space to unwind. That didn't mean women didn't have opinions. They did. They just learned to express them in code. A gentle suggestion, maybe don't stay out too late. A quiet sigh when he came home smelling of whiskey and cigarettes. But confrontation, that wasn't feminine. Now, marriage is about shared boundaries, not silent tolerance. Both partners have a say in who enters their lives. But that old rule left its mark. It taught generations that men and women had separate worlds under the same roof. Did your parents live that way? While the woman didn't get a say in who her husband socialized with, they both had a part to play when it came to gardening. The man mows the lawn. The woman tends the flowers. Even outdoor chores were divided by gender. The husband handled the heavy work, the mower, the hedge trimmer, the repairs. The wife handled the beauty, the flower beds, the planters, the watering can. Together they kept the yard pristine, each with their own invisible border. It wasn't just about efficiency, it was symbolism. His work was about strength, hers about care. On weekends, you'd hear the steady drone of a lawnmower followed by the softer rustle of a watering hose. Suburbia had its soundtrack. Today, those divisions are fading. Women handle power tools, men grow vegetable gardens. But if you drive through old neighborhoods, you can still picture that balance. The man in long socks pushing the mower, the woman kneeling by the roses. Sometimes tradition lingers in the smallest gestures, doesn't it? While gardening was something both partners were responsible for, hosting was entirely the wife's job. The wife must be a good hostess. In the 1970s, social life revolved around the home. Dinner parties, bridge nights, neighborhood cookouts, all orchestrated by the wife. She set the table just right, made sure the ice bucket was full, the music soft, the kids tucked away. A hostess's success reflected on her husband. There was pressure in that perfection. Magazines printed party checklists with reminders like, have a backup dessert, keep conversation light, never let guests see you rush. Women were expected to entertain effortlessly, smiling even when exhausted. Today, entertaining is casual. Potlucks, playlists, mismatched plates. But for women then, being a gracious hostess wasn't a choice. voice. It was part of her identity. Do you remember those nights? The laughter through cigarette smoke, the hum of conversation, the careful dance between genuine joy and performance. Women already had their hands full, but no matter what, there was one thing that mattered most, and that was the man's job. Respect his job, no matter what. In most homes, a husband's work came before almost everything. If he was tired, you gave him space. If he was late, you kept dinner warm. His job defined the family's social standing, its security, its pride. A wife was expected to be supportive even if it meant sacrifice. Many women put their own dreams on hold for that support. They stayed home when he relocated. They adjusted to his schedule. They built their world around his. That was seen as love. Now, we talk about balance, partnership, shared ambition. But that old mindset created generations of women who quietly gave up parts of themselves for the sake of stability. When you think back, was there someone in your life who did the same without complaint? The husband's job took priority over everything, yet somehow talking about money problems with anyone other than each other was considered taboo. Never talk about money troubles. In the 1970s, finances were private, almost sacred. You didn't tell friends you were behind on bills, and you certainly didn't let the kids know. A couple might argue behind closed doors, whispering in the kitchen late at night while the clock ticked, but by morning, everything was smiles again. That silence came from pride and fear. Struggling meant you weren't successful. And in an age where appearances mattered, reputation was everything. Today, people are more open about financial stress, but that old instinct to hide it still lingers. It's why money remains one of the hardest things to talk about in relationship. Do you remember how your parents handled it, openly or behind closed doors? While most people have let go of the rule about never talking about money problems, many still cling to this next one. The man fixes things. If something broke, a leaky faucet, a flickering light, a squeaky hinge, there was no question who would handle it. The husband grabbed his toolbox, even if he didn't really know what he was doing. The idea of calling a repairman felt like defeat. A man was supposed to know. It was part pride, part tradition. You'd find men bent over car engines in driveways, wiping grease off their hands, with old rags, radios playing rock music in the background. Women would bring them lemonade or stand nearby, offering moral support but not advice. Today, we YouTube everything. Fixing things is about knowledge, not gender. But there was something noble about the confidence men carried then, wasn't there? Even when they had no clue, they'd give it a shot. Did your father ever spend all Saturday fixing something that never quite worked right? While the man was expected to be the fixer and handyman, the woman was expected to keep her mouth shut and never let any family secrets slip. The woman keeps the secrets. A wife in the 1970s knew things no one else did about her husband, her children, her family. She was the keeper of everything unspoken. She smoothed over conflicts, covered mistakes, made sure the family looked good from the outside. It was a kind of quiet power, but it also meant carrying the emotional weight alone. She absorbed tension, soothed egos, and rarely got the same comfort in return. Her strength wasn't loud. It was steady, invisible, necessary. Now, emotional honesty is encouraged. Couples share burdens, talk about feelings, break the silence. But for decades, women were taught that protecting others meant silencing themselves. How many secrets did your mother or grandmother hold that you'll never know? No matter what emotional weight either the woman or the man had to carry, the most important thing was knowing that marriage was meant to last forever. Marriage is forever. This was the golden rule, the one that framed all the others. Marriage wasn't a chapter, it was the whole book. You didn't walk away. You endured, adapted, forgave, or ignored, because that's what people did. There was honor in that kind of loyalty, even if it came with heartache. Couples celebrated anniversaries like medals earned through battle, proof of perseverance, not always passion. Love was less about firework and more about staying. Today, we define forever differently. We talk about growth growth, compatibility, emotional safety. But that old belief that marriage was unbreakable shaped generations. And maybe in a world where everything changes so fast, there's still something comforting about that constancy. You can almost hear it now. The clink of silverware, the rustle of the evening paper, the quiet hum of a house held together by rules and love in equal measure. The 1970s may feel distant, but the echoes are still here, in habits, in memories, in the way we define love itself. Because for all the rules that seem shocking today, they were born from one simple truth. Everyone back then and now was just trying to make marriage work the best way they knew how. Now that you've traveled through time with me, tell me, which of these rules do you still see in your own relationships today? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.